Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today I'm going to be ranking the 10 greatest NHL trades that almost happened. Now, over the past couple of decades, we've seen some insane NHL trades go down. Recently, we've seen Mark Stone, Erik Karlsson, Taylor Hall, PK Subban, all being traded. But what doesn't really get noticed is the trades that don't end up happening, but the huge deals that almost happen. So, what were the 10 biggest trades in the NHL that didn't happen, but were super close to being done? What were the players involved, and what would have happened if these trades actually went through? Watch till the end for all the picks and rankings, and of course hit that subscribe button for more videos just like this one. So without further ado, starting out at number 10, the 10th biggest trade that almost happened. This one involves Marc-Andre Fleury and the Calgary Flames. Now back in 2017, the Calgary Flames did not have that great goaltending, and that would persist until Rittich started to be pretty solid for them. But back in 2017, they were looking to go into the playoffs with Brian Elliott, and pretty much that was it. They didn't really have that clear-cut great starter option. Of course, that playoff would not be all too great for Flames and Elliott, and they could definitely use Flurry, but they were really close to actually trading for him. When it came to Calgary, they were pursuing him heavily throughout that year, and Marc-Andre Fleury was also potentially willing to forgive his no-move clause and maybe go to the Calgary Flames. Of course, the rest is history. He would stay on the Pittsburgh Penguins, win his third Stanley Cup, and would be off to the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Calgary Flames would be with nothing. Now going on to the 9th biggest NHL trade that almost happened, and this one was very close, that being Dougie Hamilton going to the Edmonton Oilers. Now the Oilers back in the 2015 draft had a deal almost set in stone with the Boston Bruins. They would give up their 16th overall pick, 33rd overall pick, and 57th pick in the 2015 draft. But Boston was still being kind of lenient. They wanted to get Darnell Nurse in the trade, and Edmonton just flat out said no. But then the Calgary Flames would swoop in, getting him for the 15th overall pick, the 45th and the 52nd overall pick. But Edmonton was this close to getting Dougie Hamilton, and although Darnell Nurse is a pretty good defenseman, right now I definitely do prefer Dougie Hamilton. Just saying. Now going on to the 8th greatest NHL trade that almost happened, this one involving PK Subban and the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, it was reported that Marc Bergevin was shopping PK Subban back in 2014. Of course, would continue to shop him, but nonetheless, back in 2014, one of the main contenders was the Philadelphia Flyers. But at that point, Sean Couturier was their main blue chip prospect, and that's who Montreal was going after. Philadelphia declined, didn't even want to touch Sean Couturier, but Montreal wouldn't budge. They would continue to talk about Sean Couturier, continue to pursue him, but at the end, that deal would fall through. Philadelphia would keep Sean Couturier, and we can see how that's worked out. Couturier has become awesome for Philly, and now PK Subban is in New Jersey. Now, this next one is kind of insane to believe, but it is true, and it is insane. Going to the 7th greatest NHL trade that almost happened, this one involving Corey Perry and the Edmonton Oilers. Now, back in December 2003, rising player Mike Comrie was a guy that was looked at as a big future of that Edmonton team. But as an extension was coming and as an extension was looming, Edmonton just did not want to pay him. So they were shopping him, trying to see what ended up happening and what the market was. There ended up being a deal that was set in place to where Mike Comrie would go to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for Corey Perry and some other pieces as well. Now, Mike Comrie, the one condition on that trade that Kevin Lowe ended up sending was that Mike Comrie had to take back his $2.5 million signing bonus to the team of Edmonton for the trade to go through. And that was a pretty weird request to actually happen. And of course, Mike Comrie would decline. That trade would end up falling through, and Corey Perry would win a cup in Anaheim, a Hart Trophy, and would be an absolutely fantastic player for Anaheim. And for the Edmonton Oilers, until Connor McDavid, they would have to sit and watch that. Now going on to the 6th greatest NHL trade that almost happened. This one is absolutely bonkers, but back in 2016, Taylor Hall was almost traded for Cody Ceci straight up. I don't know how it happened, but it almost happened. Now, of course, the story would end up being so that he would go to the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for Adam Larsson. But back in 2016, Edmonton and Ottawa had a deal set that would have Taylor Hall for Cody Ceci. The only reason this trade didn't happen is that it needed to get approved throughout Ottawa ownership, and translation, needed to get approved for Eugene Melnyk. Eugene Melnyk did not approve it fast enough. Edmonton would sweep in and get Adam Larsson. And it's kind of just scarily ironic that Eugene Melnyk held Taylor Hall from the Ottawa Senators. Now going on to the fifth biggest NHL trade that almost happened, this one involving Claude Giroux to the Tampa Bay Lightning in exchange for Paul Ranger. And no, you are not hearing that wrong. Paul freaking Ranger. Now this was supported by Bill Waters, former assistant GM for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and apparently I would assume back in 2008 when Paul Ranger ended up peaking when he got 31 points in 72 games, looking like a strong two-way defenseman. Apparently Philadelphia offered Claude Giroux in exchange for Paul Ranger, straight up, and Tampa Bay rejected the deal. Yeah, that was Brian Lawton, by the way. Thanks a lot, bud. Now, let's say this trade offer happened in 2008, right? Even when Paul Ranger was at the top of his game, which wasn't even all that great, by the way. But back then in 2008, Claude Giroux was coming off an 112 QMJHL point season, and that season had 106 points in 55 QMJHL games, would get 51 points in 19 QMJHL playoff games, by the way, and would end up being a star for the Philadelphia Flyers. Are you kidding me? Now going on to the fourth biggest and greatest NHL trade that almost happened, this one involving Leon Draisaitl to the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for PK Subban. Now, if it was just Draisaitl for Subban, looking at it today, that would be a pretty bad trade. But back in 2016, the Edmonton Oilers were almost sending Leon Draisaitl, a defenseman either or Darnell Nurse or Oscar Klefbom, and a 2016 fourth round pick in exchange to the Montreal Canadiens for PK Subban. That trade almost happened. And although Peter Chiarelli would end up vetoing that trade and it would not end up happening, that trade offer was actually considered by Edmonton. Now, this is one of the more unrealistic and probably less considered trades that almost happened, but it was definitely on the table. You have, again, Leon Draisaitl, who at that time wasn't a bona fide, fantastic player, but you had Oscar Klefbom or a Darnell Nurse and a pick on top of that, plus, according to Elliot Friedman, another asset. That's kind of insane, and obviously for Edmonton, we can see why they rejected that deal. So for Peter Chiarelli, at least he has that. Now we have some trades here that infuriate me, like the potential Claude Giroux trade, but this one actually makes me pretty happy that it didn't end up happening. This one involving Tyler Seguin from the Boston Bruins being traded to the Buffalo Sabres 1-for-1 in exchange for Thomas Vanek. Yes, this is a trade that almost happened, and it was actually very close to happening. The Buffalo Sabres and the Boston Bruins agreed on this deal, and then of course the Dallas Stars would swoop in, give up their package for Tyler Seguin, and the rest would be history. The Boston Bruins preferred that package, and it still ended up becoming horrible. But Boston, and for Thomas Vanek back in 2013, that was a player that was really, really solid, and at the prime of his career. So for Boston, at least at that point, Vanek had some serious value, but Tyler Seguin obviously would prove that trade wrong. If he went to Buffalo, it would be completely different. Although I'm not sure if he would be as good as he was in Dallas, that would be such a huge player for Buffalo. At that point, they might not even trade a guy like Ryan O'Reilly, but they probably don't have Jack Eichel, so you win some, you lose some. Now going on to the second biggest NHL trade that almost happened, this one involving Steven Stamkos going to the New York Rangers. And this trade was a done deal. This was a shaken hands deal that was almost done. Now, according to Barry, the assistant GM of the Tampa Bay Lightning at the time, he wanted 2 of 3 of wish list coming from the New York Rangers, which included Michael Del Zotto, Evgeny Greshov, Ryan Callahan, Brandon Dubinsky, and Dan Girardi. He wanted 2 or 3 out of that list. And that deal would end up being done. They would shake hands, and Steven Stamkos was on his way to New York. But he was the assistant GM, so he didn't have the final authority on it. He went to Brian Lawton, the guy who declined the Claude Giroux trade, but thankfully for Brian Lawton, he vetoed it, did not want any part of it, and the deal would not go down. But he would end up saying that they shook hands on it, Barry with Sather at the same time. They had that deal done, and Steven Stamkos was almost a New York Ranger. Now going on to the number one greatest NHL trade that almost happened, this one involving Vinny Lecavalier to the Montreal Canadiens. Now, it doesn't just stop there. Vinny was a fantastic player for the Tampa Bay Lightning, got the Stanley Cup, scored over 100 points in one season, was absolutely brilliant, and the trade was about to go down in 2009. Now, for Vinny Lecavalier, the Montreal Canadiens reportedly were going to send Carey Price. It doesn't just stop there. PK Subban. It doesn't just stop there, and Max Pacioretty. That was the reported trade offer by Brian Lawton, and it was considered by the Montreal Canadiens. Now, the trade didn't end up going through, and at that point, Montreal just didn't want it to actually happen, but it was considered. Now, back then in 2009, of course, Carey Price was just entering the league. Same thing with PK Subban, and I'm pretty sure Max Pacioretty would come a year later. So these guys weren't bona fide amazing superstars yet, but they still had tons of value. And Lecavalier back in 2009 was still very, very good. Although he would end up dropping off almost completely once he went to Philly, that was still a player that was seriously good. That trade was pretty close to happening, and if Tampa got Carey Price, PK Subban, and Max Pacioretty, they might just have one more Stanley Cup other than 2004. But those are my rankings for the top 10 trades that didn't end up happening. Of course, with this video, I need to hear y'all's thoughts down in those comments down below. Let me know what you think about these trades that almost went through. What do you think about the trade offers? And let me know what other trades you think also almost went through that you want to share. Of course, with this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Make sure you share this video with your friends. Get the trades that almost happened out there, boys, because this is some juicy stuff, I'm just saying. And of course, make sure you click on this card right here to watch all my videos on my NHL trade thoughts and discussions. My name is Nathan, and I'll see you guys next video or stream. Goodbye.